Hey y'all, it's Julie here with Spencer, and today is a pretty exciting day for us. You may have noticed that the last, I don't know, month or two of videos have been mostly around the homestead as far as the rows instead of the rows in the agroforest. There's a reason for that. We've been wanting to catch up basically everything around the regular garden so we can focus on installing these rows. We have 3 left to go in the agroforest, and basically we want to show you that process from start to finish.
As we're going through this process, this is going to be a multi-part series, that if you have questions, please ask them, because we're going to be uploading these videos as we're still working out here. So if you have some questions that I didn't answer fully as I'm going and as I'm describing things, and you're wondering why did I do what I did, so please interact. That's the best way that you're going to learn, because this is not the first time we've done this. We've been doing agroforestry for years, and this is the most dialed in system that I've created. All right, so we're going to tell you a little bit about why we're doing this the way that we're doing it. So what we did before is we were cutting through this section, going 2 rows at a time and clearing a zone and working that. What we actually did last time was we cut this zone out, and we didn't actually end up getting the time to finish planting it out. So we had a lot of our problem plants actually move in and kind of take this zone and push further into this area than we wanted it to. So that is now going to give us more work to do what we're about to do. So what our plan now is to just clear this whole zone and take it all down at once and plant this whole zone out as quick as possible. So it's going to be a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of work for us, so it's not going to happen really quickly because it's hard for us to dig holes here. So this is going to be, as fast as we can do it, also around our time and our schedules and stuff. So let's walk around and show you some of our nuances. All right, so first of all, I want to talk about these albizia trees right here behind me. So we cut these a very particular way. They're very large, they're very tall, they're very up and out of the way, they're very hard to deal with. So these are our albizia. I pollard them up to about 12 or 13 or maybe even 14 feet, which was above the top of our ladder. So my intention with this was to allow our chayote here to grow on it. And for the chayote to just get up there and kind of hang around and drop its food as it does, which are large squash-like fruits. But as we can tell, it's broken plenty of branches up there. These are really weak trees at their cuts, at their joints. So I can guarantee that this whole tree is just going to rip itself in half eventually. So what we need to do is we need to come and take them down. So this is why you don't want to pollard albizia, because they turn into having super weak joints up there in the air with a bunch of length and a bunch of weight that they're just going to go and fall and smash things. And it's, this cut was so high that I couldn't even come without a ladder and finish removing that branch that broke off in a minor windstorm. So that was as high as I cut it. So you don't want to manage these trees like that. They're very hard to manage. They're very difficult. So what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to be taking these trees down lower, so it's easier for me to work with them on a ladder. But I do want them to still be acting the way they're acting, because I want that squash up and out of the way. So super particular, but I wouldn't suggest doing it because it's very problematic. And if things break, they're going to land onto my, my kava bed right there, things that I care about. So we're going to deal with those. And then as I work around the zone, I'm thinking about which trees I'm going to manage next and what order of operations and these types of things. So this is all very thought out and very well orchestrated as we're working, and it's taken us a long time to figure out the proper order of operations to make this as easy of a workflow as possible. This is the most efficient, the most streamlined, the most straightforward, and we have a really harsh site and our plants are thriving out here. So this is working. So hence why we're taking this time right now to show you what we're doing, and hence why we didn't upload what we did previously, because we didn't have this fully dialed in this place. So the way that I like to work, the way that I like to educate, is based off of knowledge, off of firsthand experience. So this is my firsthand experience of how I'm growing in a low rainfall, super drainage site. So this is super particular. As you can tell, our plant right there is drooping, right? It's hot out here right now. And it's kind of a crazy time for us to cut all this down because it's so hot and we're stuck in a drought. But we've finally gotten to the point where we're actually taking all of this down, and we're really excited. So we're just going to do it. And we know not to plant until it's raining. All right, so let's talk about the procedure. So first, I'm going to be coming through and, checking out our zone. I'm going to see where our largest trees are. You know, we've got like that trema right there. We've got this albizia right there. We've got that cecropia right there. We've got that other albizia over there. These ones here. So I see these big trees. Look how big that trunk is. That's going to do some damage when it drops. So I'm going to be dropping that first, and I'm going to be dropping that onto other vegetation. So I also want to mention that we do have a lot of other plants out here, plants that were planted previously. You know, we've got jackfruits. We've got, there's like chompadex over there. There's egg fruits right here. There's maybe Americanas right here. There's chompadex here. So there's a lot of other plants out here that we care about that we are going to try as hard as possible not to damage while we're dropping all this vegetation. So because they're out here, it does make this procedure slower and more delicate and more precise. You know, it's like I can't give this 100% full sun. It's not going to be happy. So I need to be as smart as I can to give what that needs when it needs it. A lot of these other plants, like this is a hardier plant, a jackfruit, I can cut this down to the ground and it will be okay. Ingas I can cut down to the ground, you know, so certain things we can cut down and they're not going to have a problem. Certain things I'm nervous I might kill if I do that. So it's all really dynamic and all really thoughtful, you know, the way that we're doing what we're doing. So there's one more thing that I forgot to mention, so I'm going to add that in right now, and that is that we know this site very well. We know which plants are out here. We know that there's no native species except one that is a fern-like species in this area. So by coming through and working the forest the way that we're working it, we are not going to be damaging the native ecosystem at all because there are no natives here. This has been ripped 15 years ago. So if you're doing this at home, please pay attention to the native plants and give them space. This is their home and they deserve to be in their home. So I just want to mention that, you know, there's morals involved in working with nature. So we're not just coming through and blasting a zone down, you know, we know what's out here. I know that there's no slow growing native species that we're going to damage. So I just wanted to mention that, and back to the rest of it. So yeah, I need to be cautious about those. There's also a bunch of avocados out here. So those things I'm not going to be touching too much, you know, today as I go and cut things down. That's going to be more of a come back and prune and shape as we're working later. But first I'm going to take these big trees down. They're going to come down, I'm going to cut them up, and then we're going to organize our material into piles. And we know where the tops of our rows are and where the bottoms of our rows are, so we're going to pile our material in our inner rows so they're out of our way for us to continue our workflow to get to the point where we need to get. So basically we're creating compost piles that are just going to be stick piles, bush piles in and around the area, and we're just going to leave them, and then we're going to come back and cut them up like we did in our Mulch Madness video, and mulch that onto our other edges of our rows and stuff. So it's a particular order for operations, and we're losing some of our leaves and stuff, but at least it's all getting into the system. But maybe it's not being placed directly on our rows because we don't have the capacity to get that all done at one time. So let's see what's next. And then once I get these big trees down, then I'm going to be coming through and cutting these melastomas, these smaller bushes. We've got some good examples of it. Oh, right here, right behind me. So this, basically I'm going to be cutting all of the naturalized vegetation down to the ground. So almost we're going to be clear cutting this whole zone, which is about 50 feet by about 105 feet. We're going to be clear cutting it down to leave just our favorable plants that we have already have out here. So the clear cutting is not going to be killing a lot of these species because we're going to be allowing so much sunshine on here, so these are going to be regrowing. So I expect this to come back once I cut it down to the ground. But what I don't want is I don't want this to shoot up like this really quickly and again start shading the system while it's young. So what I want is I want good sunshine on the system while it's young. So I actually am going to take it down to the ground, so I slow the procedure of it coming and retaking the zone. And same thing with the melastomas, those will be coming down to the ground. And then one other really particular thing about these cecropias who get a lot of, and the trema as well, who get a lot of the CRB damage, sorry, not CRB, QLB, the longhorn. We've got a video about that. So these trees get really funky after you cut them because the beetles come in and mess with them, right? That's gross. So what I've found is the beetles don't go after super young trees. So if I cut a tree high and leave it high as like a pollard or as a coppice, they're going to come and recognize that that tree is damaged, and they're going to come and want to lay their eggs in it. And that time, or that, about 30% of the time, they'll come and kill that tree before it regrows and becomes a tree again. So what I found is if you cut them down to the ground, then they have more of a chance to come back and stay healthy and stay alive, because the younger branches are not as attractive to the beetles to lay their eggs in. So hopefully I will be able to keep these around because they're good mulch producers. So basically I want this area open so it's nice and sunny, but I want these trees to come back so we have mulch. We've been working this zone for almost 2 years now that we've been living back here. So the way that we've kind of recognized this area is that we want this to be agroforestry. So we've been looking at this for 2 years that we want this to be agroforestry. So we've been working it in an efficient way to leave it alone, to allow it to just stay as a fallow, but not become giant and hard to deal with. So almost about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less, we had a couple friends come over and we came and we cut all of these large trees down. And that's why we have these cuts here. That's why this cut is here. That's why this cut is here. So what we actually did was we came and we managed all the large trees so that they wouldn't become a problem. And then we've just let them all regrow for either 2 years or 1 year, and I've already come back out and cut them again. So we've been planning this and thinking about this and allowing this to work as well as possible, while it's still just maintaining itself so that we still have the natural fertility that's out here. If we would have clear cut this 2 years ago, this would be chaos and we wouldn't have taken it. So it's about being effective and efficient with our time as possible and knowing our capacity rather than chewing more or biting off more than we can chew, and actually having a solid procedure to get through this system to be able to make this type of system. So this is super exciting for us. You know, we're gonna get our 3 rows out, and then this zone is planted out, and then it's just having fun in agroforestry. You know, we don't have to think about the stress of these large trees. We don't have to think about the stress of the things in the nursery. And yeah, this is an exciting moment for us. So stay tuned, keep watching, and we're gonna get to the time lapse. Alrighty, so let's show you what we were working on. We were working on, first of all, I took down these albesias. So we took off the tops, we mulched that over here into our kava bed, and then I had lowered the height of this tree down so it's more manageable. So that was with this one and this one. And then we've got our vines still coming up here, so that'll still continue to grow on it and do its thing. And then here's one of our piles. So this was one of our stick piles. So this was our leaves and our smaller branches and stuff that we threw into one pile. So it's about a week later here right now, so the vegetation's a little bit brown. So this is, showing that we weren't able to get it into our rows as quickly as maybe ideal, but that's kind of what we have to deal with. So this was here, so I'll come back through and I'll shred this up. I shredded it a little bit. So then this material is going to come onto the edge of our rows eventually. And then these logs we're actually going to come through and cut into pieces that are about this size. And then these logs are going to come onto the row over here like this. So basically, as we were taking down all this vegetation, we were trying to figure out where we're putting these piles. So that was the whole procedure, basically. So we were trying to get them, in the middle of our inner rows as much as possible and leave our rows clear so we can continue working in that zone. And then we can come down here. We got another pile here. I left some of these trees up because I need to come through with a bigger saw, but I figured I would wait until the end and do that all at once rather than pulling out the saw for like 2 cuts. And then another thing that we noticed while we were working out here is these piles. So we've got these giant piles of rocks. So we actually kind of need to deal with these piles. So what we noticed, or what we think what happened out here, was a few years ago when someone came and cleared this zone initially, they set out these piles to push them into this zone behind me here. So this zone here has a lot more topography, has a lot more large rocks like this. So typically people come and they cover the large rocks with small rocks and flatten it out. So somebody didn't finish that task. So we're gonna have to come and do that. So that's gonna slow down our whole operation here for a little while because that's a large pile. And then we got to figure out where that's going to go. And then in the meantime, we had to throw, some of these compost piles around. So that's like kind of in the way now. So we have to deal with like all this extra chaos because of these piles. But we figured it's important to move these piles now rather than having this like weird lump here and this weird lump there and that other lump down that way. Yeah, and then as we were clearing, I did leave a few things up, like, this melastoma here to shelter this native tree down here that we planted, just so it's got a little bit of passing shade over it. So things like, as we were working, we were noticing which things need a little bit of shelter still, so we didn't want to fully clear around them and take it down to fully expose them. So the plan is to slowly expose them to full sun rather than just blast them with full sun. So this will stay up here for probably another week or so, and then I'll come and lower that down. And maybe these will be shooting up vegetation by that point, maybe not, I don't know. But right now it's doing pretty good in the sun, and also it's got, these avocados for shade here. So eventually we'll come and we'll prune these avocados, but we're not worried about them right now. And then down in here, this is kind of the uneven zone. You can kind of see a lot of extra big rocks and stuff. So we're gonna have to push those rock piles into here. And then a lot of the things that we found in here was like, we've got some ingas, we've got a bunch of avocados, we've got some jackfruits, there's a couple chinas over there, there's a champadeck over there. And yeah, so this is basically just opened up and getting ready for what's next to come through. So I think that's about it for everything on this video. So this is part 1 of our clearing. We're probably going to do another part 2, maybe even a part 3. So we're going to be pushing back that way. So if you want to continue watching this type of content and continue seeing what we're doing, because this is, our whole procedure to get from a wild fallow to, our tidy agroforestry rows. So it's, a work in progress and, little steps at a time to get to our main goal. So please subscribe if you want to continue watching. Please like, and if you have some questions, please ask, give us some comments. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.